I was brought in my head last night into the home of Shedeur Sanders, who did not show up in Green Bay, didn't want to go, sort of the anti-Cam Ward, who loved being in Green Bay, was super excited to be in Green Bay. I don't like Cam Ward anymore for that. Hates Green Bay. But Shedeur Sanders, nothing. And he knew it was coming. He had to have. He fell out of the top first round. His DraftKings odds to go below 14 was minus 450.
There did feel like there was a momentum building to hold on. This may not go so well for him. I mean, heck, when we were talking to Diana yesterday, she made it sound like it was totally possible that he slips to the second.
She made
round.
it sound probable in a sense, because when we brought up Pittsburgh, and it was sort of like this tepid response of, well, maybe, and that would be probably the highest place that Shedeur could go.
So my query is, do you cancel the party?
Before the party starts.
Do you cancel the party before the draft starts? You're getting all these people. If you know you're trying to win Best Actor and you know you're losing, you're just happy to be nominated, you're going to have a full party?
It makes it more sad, though, if he's just alone in his house on a couch.
That's
like,
true.
Regardless, they're going to want a shot of him, so you might as well have it look like festive.
I would say a little bit of it depends on who you are inviting to your party. If your party is all of your family and closest friends, no. You'd like to be around the people that care about you and you care about if things don't go well. Maybe you want to be around people who you love. But if it's a whole sponsors, that kind of deal, you may want to pull the plug on that.
Because you're concerned that you won't react well?
Maybe.
Because they're going to keep going to you and take a photo of you as one pick gets called, then another pick gets called, and you're still sitting there. That's one of the great visuals of any draft, is players who go. That's why players often don't want to go to the draft.
Well, I think that's why Shedeur didn't want to go to the draft.
Can you imagine him still sitting there?
Because you know the television cameras would have loved nothing more than let's keep showing Shedeur every pick that is not him.
I feel like we have some examples of that quarterback sometimes turns out to be good. A guy that sits, Aaron Rodgers did it. Lamar Jackson sat way longer than we thought.
Roethlisberger didn't sit forever, but he was sitting for a little longer, I think, than they thought.
So I feel like if I'm Shedeur, I'm like, okay, this happens. Like it happens with someone every other year where you think they might go mid-first round, they go later, and it turns out okay. You end up on a better team a lot of times.
But it doesn't happen very often where a guy who had the hype that Shedeur Sanders did. It wasn't that long ago in the college football season, this past season, where it was a real thought that number 1 and 2 in the draft is Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. And for him to fall totally out of the first round. By the way, for intrigue and dramatic purposes, I like it because, man, tonight's exciting again. I thought it was the biggest story going into the draft yesterday. Where's Shedeur going to go? And now we get the same story going into tonight. Tonight is super interesting.
I want to blame somebody, though. Who do I blame for this Shedeur thing?
Dion.
Okay.
Total hyping of a player.
What about the media?
Yeah, I'm not going to blame the media. I'm part of the media. I'm not going to blame the media, all right? But I do wonder how much of Shedeur Sanders was media hype. We know that the Sanders family, Colorado, everything going on there, Shedeur is very, braggadocious. Major ratings, numbers, clicks, all that stuff during the college football season. I do wonder how much of the hype around Shedeur going into the draft, people thinking how great he is, I do wonder how much of that was a bit of a media creation.
There's hype that happens every single year, and I'm curious. We're actually often in charge of hype because you want to hype your own players. You want to hype the people who you're not taking, so there's no hype around the people who you actually want to take. So there's a lot of funny business that goes on around hyping.
I think when you talk about media creation of an athlete, right, I think there's also media cratering of same athlete, where you have the media going, actually, you know what? Even though he was pretty special at Colorado, albeit against teams that were probably not as good as other teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, and then you see him at the pro day and you're like, wow, he pats the ball a lot. Like that window's not going to be there in the NFL like the same way it is in college. Or how many guys do we see that are excellent at one level and then they get to the next level and it's like, oof, wait, like this guy was good in college, but in the pros, he's not that guy. And
So how did the media crater him then?
it just feels like now going towards the draft, there was a lot of stuff on him and his interviews with teams, a lot of leaks. It felt like, oh, Shedeur is being very braggadocious and being very this and being very that. It just felt like there was a lot of like anti-Shedeur stuff going into the draft in the same way that during the season, they were kind of propping him up.
I just don't know how much that has to do with him falling versus it's a warning that, hey, he's going to fall, right? Like, I don't know if the media influence is there, like if public perception, any of that makes a difference as much as it's someone like Diana or anybody else becoming informed and saying, hey, these teams are telling me this guy is going to fall. This is how they feel. And now I'm just communicating to the viewer that, hey, when you show up and you expect this guy whose number was just retired to be drafted day one, that's not going to happen.
For sure, but that's closer to the draft. It felt like after the Super Bowl, there was like, all right, there's a lot of negative momentum in the Sanders camp where it's like things are coming out. His pro day, he's not going to throw here, he's not going to throw there, he's going to do his own thing, like
that type of stuff.
And on top of that, the Travis Hunter praise. It's like, is he going to play both sides? He says if he doesn't play both sides, he's not going to play. Like there was just a lot of stuff that was anti-Colorado, both athletes, that I thought was a little weird.
We tend to ignore that, and I think teams, you don't pay a lot of attention to that anonymous assistant coach who talked about how bad Shedeur was, how bad the interview was. It doesn't impact his draft status. Teams don't pay attention to that at all.
But perception, though, Dave. Perception,
not
like
in the
public,
draft room
for
of a
sure.
team.
But public perception, right now,
for
everybody
sure.
starts thinking, "Oh, wait, is he kind of an asshole?" Like we thought that he was, this guy. Well, he also was flexing a $75,000 watch that student said during the game. But whatever.
Is that a flex automatic when you're Deion Sanders' child?
Yeah.
To flex a $75K watch?
I don't think. Well, I know there's not another sport where the team only cares about what can help them win. Like the NFL, I feel like is that sport. All the other stuff don't care. Can he help us win? And certainly Shedeur is not a bad character guy. No trouble off the field. If anything, I think he's high character. Obviously super arrogant. But if anything, I think he's high character because I know for me, if Deion Sanders were my father, you grow up that way. I don't know that I'm working as hard as Shedeur did to get to this point. So I think that's a sign of high character. But I that's why I believe that it's a little bit, maybe it was a little bit of a media creation how good we thought he was, because I don't think NFL teams are drawn away from, oh, he was very arrogant. If he could help us win at the most important position in all of pro sports.
The ability for a quarterback to translate. We talked about, Tony said, college players who don't end up being good pros. That's every sport. There's a ton of college basketball players who are fun to watch during March, and they're terrific. They can even get to a championship, and they can't play pro basketball. Baseball, obviously, that's the case. Football, of course. There's great football. You're like, wow, that quarterback. I was thinking about the number one, if we had to do a top 5 of the greatest college players who never were able to quite make it, the first guy I think of is Doug Flutie. And I don't know if there's a view
He
that
had a good career.
Doug had a good
Do you
career.
view him as having had a good pro career?
Good career. Good. But there are plenty like Heisman winning quarterbacks who amount to nothing.
Well,
in the league.
ironically,
Jason White.
the comparison that I just started thinking about as you were mentioning all of this, and we're talking about Travis Hunter and some of the media hype around the quarterback, different character thing, because I agree with you. I think Shedeur might be cocky, confident,
definitely cocky,
but
yeah.
not a bad. No, the idea of he might be that, but that doesn't make him a bad guy or an inconsistent character to show up in a locker room. But how dissimilar is this from Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans at Texas A&M, where you had this generational receiver who, when we're watching it in college, we're giving both guys the credit and saying you have this electric quarterback who's running around and doing all these things. You have this singular wide receiver who we think is great, not sure who to give the credit to, but when it came down to the draft, Johnny
I think it's a fair question.
Slipped a little bit, ended up being taken by Cleveland. Mike Evans, taken in the top 10. A generational receiver, has been one of those guys with 1,000 yards for like 10 straight years. He's a Hall of Famer. And now Travis Hunter at the top of this draft. Is this the same thing of the teams doing the scouting and realizing more of this was Travis Hunter than was Shadour Sanders?
And I think it's a question that gets answered over the course of careers. And so we're going to watch what happens with Shedeur. He'll go today. And the question is, when he goes, what a team does is they give up their 5th-year option when you don't get taken in the first round. So I don't think he'll get taken early in the second round. There was a thought that the Browns may take him right out of the gate, but why not trade up and get the 5th year out of him? It makes no sense to me to take a quarterback like Sanders who may not play.
Well, you're weighing the value of having him under contract for a 5th year instead of just 4 years versus keeping whatever draft capital you would have had to give up to move back in the first round.
Right, and to me, a year of service is everything. And keeping a guy an extra year, we do calculations like that in baseball, how to keep a player an extra year of service time before free agency. I have to assume it's part of the calculus for a GM to make in football. Because that 5th year, it's such an interesting rule. But, man, that is a huge thing for a player.
It's huge, too, when you can get everybody under the cap space and you have that quarterback that can extend the window of guys you have to win now, right? Like, we've seen it, Brock Purdy, we've seen Russell Wilson. Like, we've seen these guys be great early. Jalen Hurts early on before they gave him that massive contract. But it's like, if you have that guy locked in, you could take a chance on other things in the draft. Will the Cleveland Browns take him right out of the gate tonight? That's the question. Like, what if he slides out of the second round?
By the way, he might not be the first quarterback taken here. Like, when we were talking to Diana yesterday, she was talking about the momentum for Tyler Shuck to potentially even be a first-round pick.
So
there are teams, Jalen
too.
Milroe's out there as well that has all of the measurables that would make you think, hey, if we're willing to take a project, why not take him? So
and the opposite hype on Milroe,
yeah,
right? Like
the total
everybody was
opposite.
down on
Correct.
Milroe during the season, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, this guy's incredible.
Yeah, because he has all of those measurables that everybody freaks out with at a combine. So it's a different type of thing.